Right, moving on. Question number 4 comes in from Raj. Hi there, Raj. Thank you for your question here. So Raj asks, we started the build of a new two-story extension in July and agreed a price and contract with a builder. We paid a deposit up front, with the rest being paid at various stages up to completion. Partway through, they stopped work, saying there was a shortage of materials because of the war in Ukraine. I then received a spreadsheet and associated invoice with lots of additional things added that were never done or even part of the agreement. The costs were escalating, so after weeks of challenging him, he agreed to remove the dodgy costs off the invoice. Now the builder is refusing to finish the work, leaving us high and dry. The project cost just over 40,000. We have so far paid 28,000. The builder has said it's not economically viable for him to finish the rest of the work for just 12 grand. He said he has revisited the invoices already paid and increased them to reflect numerous costs he had absorbed. Can he do this? Where do we stand legally on this? Can he be forced to finish the work given we had a contract? Okay, Raj, thanks for the question. And there's quite a lot going on there. So let's kind of pull it apart and try and find your way forward with all this. It's always a problem when you're employing a builder and situations like this happen. And the main problem that you're faced with in this sort of situation is that there's a general level of mistrust of builders, because we've heard of a lot of these dodgy builders that take an upfront deposit, for example, as you've paid in your case, and they run off and they say, oh, we're going to go and get all the materials, and they never turn up to do the job, right? So there's an issue that we've unfortunately had a stigma in the industry where dodgy builders don't do the work, or they end up in situations like this where they're trying to increase the cost of the contract in order to cover the fact that they're losing out on the profit margin, or their cost base has actually increased. And this is something similar that happened with a friend of ours who asked me whether or not they should do a loft conversion on their property. This was last year. Should they do a loft conversion or should they move? And I said, have you ever done any work on a property before? And they said, no, we haven't. And it was a modern property. And I said, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I'd sell the property and move up the ladder. I'd leave a loft conversion to anybody else who decided to come in. They decided not to do that. They decided that they wanted to go ahead with the loft conversion. And the problem was that ultimately by doing the loft conversion, they turned it into a 3-story, 4-bedroom property with only one living room, dining room downstairs. And so it became almost top heavy in terms of the space that was available. And as a consequence, these builders started the work on the property. Then there was all this not dissimilar complications, although they didn't blame it on the war in Ukraine. They just said, cost of materials has gone up and this and that. And as a consequence, I think the original quote was something like 45 grand, and they were up to 70 grand at the last time last time I had a conversation with them. So they had unfortunately been put over a barrel. But in your situation, Raj, I would need to know more about the details of the contract as well as the specification that went with the contract to understand exactly what was agreed and what was not agreed. And if you want to send me that information, I'd be more than happy to go through it in detail and try and understand exactly what's gone on. Because for those of you that don't know, I used to be a project manager working on multi-million-pound development projects and all that sort of thing. And part of the work that we would do is be employed as the employer's agent, if you like. So normally what would happen is with these big development sites is you have the client who owns the land, and they're the ones that go out and get planning permission on it. And then they usually get planning permission for a particular owner-occupier. And then the owner-occupier would come along, they'd agree a contract price, they'd say, this is how we want the building to be built. We would put the specification together, we'd put the architect's plans together, the planning permission would be applied for. Once it was granted, we'd then start the build of the project, and that there would be an agreed specification of works that was agreed of what would actually be carried out by the contractor, in your case a builder, but in our case it was a contractor who would then agree to build the project out to the specification that was agreed. And that specification would go into a great deal of detail in terms of the type of concrete, the strength of the concrete, the bricks and blocks that were to be used, the cladding that was going to be used, the steel framing. And the point is of telling you all of this, Raj, is that the specification detailed what we needed to see built in this particular project, and it was down to the contractors to whether or not they could source the materials at a lesser cost, or they had different ways of doing the project to speed things up so that they could build in their profit margin. And it was never a case of trying to screw these guys down to the lowest cost base, because that doesn't help anybody, right? We would want them to make a reasonable profit at the end of the job, but it was more important that the project was delivered on time. And the biggest problems I've experienced in doing any of these kind of projects is usually when the quantity surveyor, as it was in our case, underestimates what is required in certain projects. And the worst project I worked on was a development in Derby, which is not a million miles away from where I am right now. And the contractor had missed, or the QS for the contractor had missed, putting in the sum for all of the concrete hard standings outside of this warehouse that we were building. And that came up to a cost of over £100,000 just for the concrete hard standings alone. And they'd completely missed that off the quote for the work. And the guys that we were working with, we would actually question this a couple of times with them. Are you sure this is your price? Are you sure this is your price for the build? They're like, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We can commit to this. And they were a big firm that were employed as contractors. And the problem started literally from day one when we arrived on site, and the site manager said to their QS, where's the allowance for all of this concrete hard standing outside? And it had been completely missed. And so they knew all of a sudden they were 100 grand in the hole in order to try and meet this contract. And again, the point of me telling you all of this, Raj, is that they then spent the next, I think it was the best part of 4 months, trying to find any kind of wriggle room within the contract where they could add in additional extras or bump the price up of the cost of the works so that they could at least claw back some kind of profit from this job. And it ended up that we were on the day of completion, they were saying, yeah, we're going to complete the project. We're going to complete the project. And for, I think it was the best part of 6 weeks, we'd said to them, do you want to extend the date of this contract? Because at the moment, it looks like you're not going to meet the practical completion date, and therefore you're going to start incurring penalties and this, that, and the other. And they denied it. They said, no, we're definitely on for completion. We're definitely on for completion. And on the day of the practical completion date, we turned up, and the client was the nicest guy you've ever met in your life. A super, super guy, a guy called Paul. I just had the utmost respect for Paul. He was the most amazing guy, and usually very softly spoken, a complete and absolute gentleman. And we sat in this site hut on site, and he listened to what can only be described as bullshit coming from the contractor's mouth as we were sat in this freezing cold site hut. And he's telling us that, even though we've got dumper trucks running around on site, and even though we've got JCBs running around on site, and there's a list as long as my arm of things that haven't been done on the building, that they will achieve practical completion on that date. And I just looked at the client, and the color of my tie was, I could see the blood pressure rising, and it just got to this point and he turned purple and he just exploded. And I totally understand why, because he didn't like being lied to. He'd been lied to for 6 weeks as to what was actually going on. The truth had been kept hidden from him, and he knew, because of all his years of experience as a developer, that this actually was never going to hit practical completion date on that time. And so he went into orbit. The contractor backed down immediately, and they then agreed to pay the penalties and extend the contract by, I think we'd agreed an 8-week extensions of the contract in order to get the building finished and signed off. And that was a bit of a long-winded explanation, Raj, here, but the point of what I wanted to say to you is you're faced with a bit of an issue, because the likelihood is, having worked on a lot of these domestic jobs as well, the strength of your contract and specification could be widely open to interpretation, because there's you may not have had a specialist like a project manager or building surveyor prepare that contract for you and prepare that specification for you. And as a consequence, it could be wide open to interpretation, which the builder is now looking to exploit. So, as you have got a contract in place, you could be at liberty to force this builder into what's known as a the name's just gone completely out of my head. Specific performance. That's it. So you could take him to court and sue him and say, you've agreed to this contract. You're not doing the work. This is what we'd agreed, and I'm now going to force you to complete the work to the specification that we've agreed, and that's called specific performance within the contract. And the risk that you have then is that you're going to try and take this guy to court, which is going to involve a lot of cost, and you're also then in a position where he could just refuse to do it and drag it out and drag it out and drag it out, or could simply go to bust, and then you're left clutching a whole bunch of legal bills and not actually getting anywhere with this. So you have to take, in my view, Raj, a very practical approach with this, because the question is it worth going down this legal route and this dispute and falling out, or is it actually worth trying to come to some agreement with the builder, which it sounds like you've tried to do in the past, but actually pointing out to them that if they're in the project for some money, i.e. they've spent out on materials and they've got it up to a certain point, which isn't quite one of the stage payment points, it could well be that they've sunk labor and costs into the build that they're now not going to recover if you don't release the next stage payment. So it might be that you're in a position here of strength where you can say, look, if you don't turn up on site and you're refusing to do any work now, I'm not going to pay you for that, and you can come after me and you can sue me. But I'm willing to work with you on the basis that, you complete this work and this work and this work, and I'll release the stage payment to you. Okay. That might be one way that you can deal with it. It is playing a little bit of hardball, but unfortunately, it sounds like you're being put in a position where you have to take that approach. The second option for you, Raj, would largely depend upon whether or not you are experienced in any kind of project management, or doing this project where you might decide that the work that's remaining to break it up into individual packages of work, such as I need somebody to do the wiring, I need somebody to do the plastering or the dry lining, I need somebody to do the plumbing, I need somebody to put the windows and doors in. I don't know quite what stage you got to in this two-story extension. Have they built just the shell? Have they put the roof on it? Have they done all the put the doors and windows in? Where has it got to? But whatever work is remaining, and from the specification that you've already got, you might decide that you can break it down into individual packages of work, and then as a consequence employ individuals to do that work to bring the project through to completion. Because if you've got 12 grand to go on the work, which it sounds like you have, then you're in a position where it might not, the cost of the project might not overrun, and therefore you're able to get the individual specialists that you need to finish those works off and bring it in under budget or on budget, which would be fantastic. Now, I will say, if you want to go down that road, it's worthwhile going to something like BNI, as a BNI meeting in your local area. Go there and see if you can get a recommendation of some good trades or a good builder who might be able to help you out and take this project off your hands and run it for you, because there are some really good builders out there. I've found a few in my time. In fact, one of the best builders I've employed recently was a guy who was actually training to become an electrical engineer. So not a Sparky, but an electrical engineer. And for whatever reason, there was a complication at the firm he worked for. They let him go. And he said, I'm thinking about branching out on my own. He was doing a bit of painting and decorating for me. And I said, look, go and do it, because I think you're brilliant at what you do. I think you'll be fantastic at what you do. Go and do that work. And there's no shortage for good quality builders who do deliver quality work to their clients. And within, I think it was 12 weeks of starting his own business, he was absolutely overrun with work. And the last time I saw him was about 18 months after he'd started his own business. And he said, I cannot keep up with the amount of work that's out there where people just want to get somebody like me on board and help him out. And he wasn't being boastful. He was just genuinely thankful that he'd been given the nurturing push, if you like, to go and start his own business. And it had worked out really, really well for him. So I think at one point he'd got, what's it called? Wicks were actually asking him to go around and fit the kitchens for them. And the amount of money he was being offered to do day rate on fitting kitchens was just obscene. In fact, I wondered whether I was in the right profession, whether I should just down tools and go and get a job working for Wicks fitting their kitchens. But Yeah, really interesting process to go through if you decide that you go to one of these BNI meetings and gather a bunch of workmen who might be able to help you, or a builder to get things going for you and sort of break up this logjam and move forward. Okay. So hope that helps, Raj. As I say, if you want me to look at the contract and the spec, get it over to me. I'll happily go through that almost line by line, and we can have a conversation to go into that in more detail. Other than that, wishing you the best of luck with it all, and hope you can get somebody to, or a group of people to help you get that project finished as soon as possible, because I know how frustrating it can be when you've got a half-finished job on your hands. All right. So good luck. So guys and girls, thank you for all of your amazing questions. Really appreciate you sending them through. As always, if you've got any questions, concerns, comments, feedback, please feed them through to us. The email address is happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk. That's happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk. You can also view past webinars and individual questions from past webinars on our website. If you go to wiggywam.co.uk, that's wiggywam.co.uk, and click on the broadcasts section at the top of the menu bar there, you'll get access to all of the previous editions of these webinars that we've done if you're finding them useful and helpful, or if you've got any feedback at all, you can feed that back through us through the website. And you can also, there's options for, depending upon who you are, whether you're an estate agent, conveyancer, removals company, surveyor, any of those people, you can have options to join WiggyWam and join the WiggyWam community and deliver your excellent services to our user database there as well. You can also get in contact with us through Twitter. Our Twitter handle is at WiggyWam_UK. That's at WiggyWam_UK. And as always, we welcome any kind of questions, comments, feedback from our WiggyWam community, you amazing guys and girls out there who are supporting the revolution in the property market. And as always, if you would be so kind as to share this with your friends and family, if you want to invite them to a future webinar in the future, we'd love to see you here live, or by all means, you can share this information with them if they're thinking about moving house. As you know, let them know that we're here as a resource that they can tap into and plug into with any of the questions or concerns that they may have. All right. And don't forget, with Christmas just around the corner, get yourself a copy of Home Buyer's Secrets, or pass this on to anybody who you know is looking to move home over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. It's an invaluable resource, even if I do say so myself. I put my heart and soul into this book, and I firmly believe it's there as a guide to really help and support anybody who's looking to move, to help you negotiate a great deal on your next home, to help protect your interests in terms of things going wrong, and they always do when it comes to buying or selling property. Your entire journey is mapped out within this book, and it's really going to help you. So as I say, homebuyerssecrets.co.uk is the website where you can grab a copy of that book, also get access to the online training course as a point of value for getting that book as well. So thanks ever so much indeed for joining us here, guys. I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar very, very soon indeed. And I'm going to say good night and God bless you all, and look forward to seeing you again soon. All right, you take care. Bye-bye.